morning, everybody. Today is day 6 of Vlogmas. We're powering through this. I don't know if I mentioned it in the video yesterday, but our heat broke 2 days ago. So yesterday they came to fix it. It worked perfectly fine when the guy left because I was here, and initially it was 60 degrees in the house, and then I set it to 66 and it was 66, so it was working fine. Then I went to work at 5 p.m. and probably like a couple hours after that, Josh texts me when he gets home from work and says, hey, our heat's not working again. I was like, are you serious? Because the guy came out and was here for a couple hours. You know, we paid like almost $600 to fix it. Like, you'd think that it would just be taken care of, but you know, nothing can ever be that simple. So it wasn't working again. So he called and they came back today. So having a little puppy, we wake up every 3 hours to make sure that she can go out and go to the bathroom so that she doesn't go to the bathroom in her crate. So I came home from work at 3 in the morning. I ended up actually getting home closer to like 3:30, and then we got in bed at 4 o'clock after, you know, we got ready for bed and everything. So I woke up at 7 o'clock in the morning to take her out and go to the bathroom with her. And then like 20 minutes later, Josh heard her whining, and so he got up because he thought that maybe I forgot to. So he woke up with her and took her out to go to the bathroom. And then he had a text on his phone that said, somebody is coming your way to come fix the heat, so be expecting them. And so he was like, well, gosh, okay, so I got 3 hours of sleep and now somebody's coming. Well, at least they're gonna come take care of it. So he only got like 3 hours of sleep last night, and then they were here from 8 to noon. But it's fixed now, and hopefully it stays fixed because we are like babies. We can't handle it 60 degrees in our house. That's way too cold. Now it's 1:30. I woke up like a half an hour ago. That's why I look like this. And to add the icing on the cake, I know a couple days ago I was talking about how I felt like I had allergies. And so I really did think that it was allergies for a while, but now I'm not so sure because Josh also kind of has similar symptoms, and my chest feels really weird now, like it feels junky. And I've had a cough for the past 2 days. And so now I think like we're both sick. Kind of not a lot of fun things going on right now. Anyway, now Josh decided that he's going to not go to work today and he'll work an extra day next week, just because he's really not feeling good. Like he's doing worse than I am. So right now, in an attempt to help him feel better, I'm gonna make one of his favorite meals. So one of his favorite meals is like chili cheese dip type of thing. I know like a lot of people make it with Velveeta and Rotel tomatoes, and sometimes they add ground beef to it, but obviously since we're vegan, we don't eat Velveeta. So I have this recipe that I make that's like a cheesy dip with, and then I add Rotel tomatoes and vegan like ground beef substitute, and I serve it over roasted potatoes that I actually make in the air fryer because it makes them super crispy super fast. So that's what I'm gonna do right now. It's his favorite meal. It's cold and icky outside. He's exhausted and feeling sick. Might as well turn his day around with a little bit of chili cheese dip. Also, another thing that I have to do is yesterday I actually made chili and cornbread, and I made it in my cast iron skillet. And for those of you who have never had one, they're quite finicky. They have to be washed in a very specific way and taken care of in a very specific way so that they don't lose their like seasoning, or else that, you know, they'll rust and stuff like that. So I just washed this pan, and now I have to season it and put it in the oven for an hour. So actually, I can show you guys how I do it. I read like a bunch of articles online, and I kind of just settled on like the most straightforward, easy, simple way to do it that also has oil that I have in my house, because I'm not gonna go out and buy flaxseed oil. That's $1 million. Alrighty, so like I said, I already washed it. You don't ever wash it with soap. That's definitely a no-go because it can strip the oils out and ruin your seasoning. So then I just use like this little like bristle brush, like if there's any stuck on food, to kind of get it off. And then after I wash it off and rinse it off, I make sure it's completely dry. Make sure there's no water spots on it, because that can definitely like come bite you in the butt. Like it will definitely rust super fast. Actually, the other day I made a pumpkin pie cheesecake, and it was super hot, and I took it out of the oven at like 2 in the morning, and I didn't want to like wait up for it and wait for it to cool down and then put it in the fridge. So I was like, oh, I'll just leave it out overnight with something covered over the top of it. And my stupid brain at 2 in the morning didn't think, oh, well, maybe I can put a lid over top of it. I just grabbed the thing that was closest, which was my cast iron skillet, and I put it over the top of the cheesecake. I came out the next morning and there was rust covering every single inch of it because the condensation from the hot cheesecake got all over it, and I let it sit out. It's really easy to make mistakes with these things. You just gotta try your hardest not to. So I washed it, it's dry, And what I do is I take some vegetable oil and I pour just a tiny little amount in it. Like, whoop. That might even be too much. Then what I do is I take a paper towel, roll my sleeves up so I don't get oil on them, and then make sure there's no posy hair on it. And then you just kind of wipe it around in circles, focusing particularly on the bottom because that's where, you know, most of the contact with food happens. And then I make sure to get it up over the sides, on the lip, on the handle. And then what I do is I pick it up, flip it around, and I rub the residual oil along the back. We don't necessarily need the back of it to be seasoned. We're just doing this to kind of protect it from rust. And then the last thing that you do is get the handle itself. Now this is kind of gross because then you have to pick it up and your hands get oily. But I think it's better than picking it up with a dish towel and like getting oil all over a dish towel. You see it's like nice and black and oily, shiny, all that good stuff. You pick it up, you bring it over to your oven, and I set mine at 450. And then you take it and you put it upside down in the oven. And you do not burn your fingers, even though the cast iron skillet is very heavy. This is always terrifying. So now I'm actually gonna grab, this is our dedicated cast iron skillet oven mitt because it's black right here. I don't care if I get oil all over it. Alrighty, now we're gonna leave that be for an hour. So I thought I'd walk you guys through how I make this chili cheese dip type situation. I didn't really find this recipe out there on the world anywhere. I just kind of adapted it from how I knew other people made it. And then I got the cheese recipe from this blog. It doesn't taste like chicken, and we can link the cheese recipe down below. I believe I just used her nacho cheese recipe, and then I kind of thin it out a little bit. So the first thing I'm gonna do is we're gonna take some vegan ground beef style crumbles. The two that I use most often are Morningstar, who just actually recently made theirs vegan. Previously they were only vegetarian. And I also use Gardine's every now and again. Now if you wanna make it super bougie, you can use Beyond ground beef, which like comes in a block at the grocery store, and it actually looks like real ground beef, but this stuff is cheaper, and honestly the meat isn't the star of the show, so this works fantastic. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I preheated my skillet to like medium heat. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add a little bit of oil. I'm just kind of, you know, freestyling here. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna add both the chopped white onion. I used about a half an onion, and then we're gonna add these, and we're just kind of gonna stir them around until they're slightly browned. Woo! Ah! Alrighty, now I bet it's super loud in here because this is loud, and also behind you I've got the potatoes going in the air fryer, so it's probably ridiculously loud in here. But we're just gonna stir these around until the beef gets a little bit, you know, browned and the onions start to, you know, look a little translucent. Now I usually use a full bag of the beef replacement, but for whatever reason we had already used some of it in ours and we don't have another bag, and I didn't realize that until just now. So normally it would be a little bit more than this, but ultimately it doesn't really matter. So we're gonna let this brown, and then I'll show you the potatoes that we got going on. So I'll take you over to the air fryer. What I did was I chopped up some russet potatoes, and then I put a little bit of oil on them. You don't need much because it's an air fryer. And then I topped it with the seasoning of my choice. Now, normally I just use salt, pepper, smoked paprika, onion powder, garlic powder. But several months ago, I tried making like KFC style chicken, so I made a bunch of like their 11 herbs and spices in a mason jar, and I have like a cup of spices that are like pre-mixed and ready to use, so if I'm feeling lazy, I just kind of sprinkle some of that on there because it gives all the flavor that I want without having to get all the spice bottles out of the cabinet. So we can check on them. I don't know if they're gonna be cooked at all yet. Oh, they're starting to cook, but that's what they look like. And we're gonna let those go for like 25-ish minutes. When they start to look brown and crispy, like you wanna eat them, then you can take them out. So sometimes I leave them in longer, sometimes they cook faster, like if there's fewer potatoes in there, if I chop them up smaller. So once I finish with this, then I will show you guys how I make the cheese sauce. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna read through all the ingredients that you need for this recipe. It seems like a lot of ingredients, but most of it's stuff that I feel like people normally just have in their pantry. So the first thing you need is raw cashews, which is like the base of the cheese sauce. It like gives it that creaminess. You need water, tapioca starch, nutritional yeast, lemon juice, salt. I ran out of fingers on my hand. white miso paste, paprika, maple syrup, onion powder, turmeric, garlic powder, and that's it. So, I mean, I guess a few of these ingredients are a little weird. Tapioca starch, who is she? What? So that's actually like the magic ingredient. So the cashews are great and fine and whatever. They add that creaminess to the cheese sauce, but the tapioca starch, you guys, it's like a magic trick. When you put it all in the blender and combine all the ingredients, it's like super watery and weird. But when you heat it up on the stove, it gets like thick and like cheesy and like stringy. It's the coolest thing ever. So I'll have to show you guys how legit it is. Maybe people don't have miso paste. Definitely not nutritional yeast. Anyway, if you're a vegan, you probably have these ingredients in your house, but if you're not, I would recommend like getting them and trying them out, because even if you're not vegan and you just want to experiment, I think it's so much fun to like try different recipes and see what you like in the kitchen. Because the first time I read this ingredient list before I ever made it, I'd never made vegan cheese before. This was the first vegan cheese that I ever made myself at my house. I was like, oh gosh, all of these ingredients sound so weird. Who puts maple syrup and miso paste in a cheese sauce? Anyway, I would just highly encourage anybody to try it because it's fun to experiment, and this cheese sauce is actually really good. So I'll show you guys what we're doing. Alrighty, so I added all the ingredients to the blender. Pretty funky looking. You can actually see on the side the tapioca starch, the nutritional yeast, and then the spices in the water. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna blend this probably for maybe like a minute. It depends what kind of blender you have. We have a Vitamix, so we can blend it like super easy. But the goal is to not have any chunks. You want it to be as smooth as can possibly be. That way it's the most realistic, like cheese-like. We're just gonna blend this up. Alrighty, we blended it all up, and this is what it looks like. See, you can see that it's like super duper liquidy, not at all cheese-like. So then what you do is you come over to the stove, you get the pan heated up to medium-high heat, and then you pour this in it. And then you stir for like 3 to 5 minutes. And you guys will see how crazy it is. The transformation from like this thin liquid to like a thick cheesy like sauce. Now normally for this recipe I actually have to add more water because I prefer the queso a little bit thinner, so it's kind of like a pourable consistency. Also because when you put it in the fridge it thickens up more. And we're gonna pour it straight in. As you can see, it's a very liquidy mixture. Alrighty, so this is the first step that you notice. It looks disgusting. Before it becomes one cohesive sauce, it gets thick and chunky like this. But as you can see, it's already like, you know, not that super thin sauce that it was. So normally about this time, I'll start adding, like I'll fill up some water in a cup and I'll start adding it to the sauce and stirring it to see, you know, what consistency I want. Because, oh look, even from when I just started filming to now, you can already see it's already getting thicker and thicker. And obviously this is more of the consistency of like a really thick cheese sauce. I prefer like a thinner, more pourable sauce. So now I'm gonna get some water and start adding it because this is too thick for me. Look at that, it already is so thick. So as you can see, I added some water and it looks really bizarre. Like that looks so unappetizing, but once I keep stirring, it'll form back into a cohesive sauce and come back together. And really, you just kind of add as much water as you want to get it to your liking. We prefer it to be thinner because we like to pour it over top of our roasted potatoes. But you might want it thicker if you're putting it like in a burrito or, you know, whatever you want. See, now if you look at the sauce again, it's already started to come back together. And I feel like that's about the consistency that we normally have it. But also what we do is we make enough so that we have leftovers and we store it in the fridge, and it definitely thickens up in the fridge. So that's why I kind of make it on the thinner side too. But then once you microwave it or heat it back up again, it does get a little bit thinner. Really, this is just a personal preference type of thing. I added about another cup of water to get this texture. But it's crazy how it went from being that liquid to now this like cheese-like sauce. Tapioca starch is wild. Alrighty, so now at this point is when I'm going to add my ground beef crumbles and the can of Rotel tomatoes. So I'm just gonna dump it in there and try not to make a mess. Alrighty, so this is what we use, just one of these 10-ounce cans of Rotel tomatoes. Be very careful at the grocery store which can you buy, because the first time we ever made this recipe, we used like the medium or something like that, or the hot, I don't know what we used. It wasn't the original, and we could barely eat it because it was so spicy, and we both like spicy foods. So that's just a word of warning. Be very careful. So then I dump it in, liquid and all. Then you're just gonna stir it all up. Now I don't know if this is like a super common food. I don't know if I ever had it before I was vegan. I know Josh has, and he's what gave me the idea to make it in the first place. But like for me, whenever I hear about it, I like associate it with like tailgating food, stuff like that. Or like maybe like a party food. So let us know in the comments down below if you're vegan or not, or if you've ever had this food, whether it be like Velveeta or if you've ever tried to make it vegan style. But that's the finished product. That is our chili cheese sauce. I don't think it's chili cheese sauce. I think I normally call it queso, but I don't know what the actual term is for it. So also maybe let us know in the comments what it's actually called, because I don't know. Alrighty, so also just another update on the cast iron skillet situation. It has been in the oven at 450 for an hour. As you can see, it's still chilling in there upside down. Now what I do is I just turn the oven off and leave it to cool. You do not want to try to grab that out of there unless you got some good oven mitts, because it is hot. Also, that's just where I keep my cast iron skillet, because I don't want like the oils getting onto my other pans or, you know, the insides of my cabinets. So I turn the oven off, I shut the door, and I leave it there, and that's where I store it, so that it's all ready for me to use it next time. Alrighty, this is the final product. We got our roasted potatoes and our queso dip. I think I'm gonna call it queso dip. Chili cheese sauce, I don't know. There's no chili in it. Well, there are green chilies. I don't know. It's not chili. Anyway, it's the final product. I would highly recommend that you get an air fryer if you don't already have one, because it makes legitimately the best crispy potatoes ever. And it is so much easier than roasting them in the oven. It takes less time and you have to use less oil, so it's easier to clean up. So we're gonna go enjoy this, and hopefully it helps Josh feel better. So we enjoyed our lunch. Gemma girl. Gemma wants some attention. Bless you. Hi, Pumpkin. Oh, that was a good sit. Anyway, we had our lunch. It was delicious. Gemma had her lunch and she enjoyed it. So now I'm gonna get ready for work, and then I think that's the end of Vlogmas Day 5. Kind of hard to vlog when I wake up at noon and leave for work at 4:30, but it is what it is. We had a good little day together, even though Josh is feeling a little sick and under the weather. So hopefully we both feel better soon. Alrighty, well I got all ready for work and now it's time for me to head out. Thank you for watching Vlogmas Day 6, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.